So I'd like to start with a very brief introduction of Tonisity International, who is sponsoring this webinar for you. We are a company founded in 2015 and based in Dublin in Ireland. And we are dedicated to the development of innovative nutritional products, which are not only beneficial for the animal health, but most important for us, which guarantee a real return on investment for our customers. And our focus is the support of intestinal functions and health, especially in young animals. And those solutions result in long-term effects. We are a research-driven company. We have today more than 140 different trials in 31 countries. And those trials have been involving more than 170,000 pigs so far. And we can offer today two solutions for swine. The first one is called Tonisity PX. The second one is called Tonisity PX W. Tonisity PX is what we call the first isotonic protein drink. The concept is to feed the enterocyte, the intestinal cells of the young piglets. What we observe in many trials is a reduction in pre-weaning mortality. On average, on 60 trials, we have seen an average reduction of 20% in the pre-weaning mortality. Also, Tonisity PX is extremely palatable and can increase the feed intake of the piglets, especially around weaning. And what we see is more pigs, heavier pigs. The second solution, which we are now starting to introduce in the market, is called Tonisity PX W. And Tonisity PX W is designed to be administered through the water lines, especially post-weaning. And the objective of this solution is to increase the water intake at weaning, and it increases the well-being of the piglets after weaning. And we see a reduction, for example, of fall behinds and reduction also in mortality in the nursery house. So it's my pleasure to welcome our speaker today, PJ Cons. PJ Cons is based in Spain. He's originally from the USA. He started his career in the swine industry in the USA, and he has been focusing on breeding farms in Minnesota and Iowa. After that, he has joined the genetic company PIC, where he has been the European Director of Technical Services, as well as Supply Chain Director and Global Animal Wellbeing Director. Today, PJ Cons is leading Global Swine Solutions, which is a consulting company dealing with some of the major pig producers worldwide. He supervises production unit for a total of 2 million sows in China, Russia, Denmark, or Spain, just to name a few. And today we have invited PJ Cons to discuss about sow body condition. So PJ, when you want to start, it's up to you.
Yeah, can you hear me okay, Matthew?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for having me, Matthew. And thanks everybody for taking your time today. This is kind of a special thing for me. Last night I had the chance, as I looked at this sow body condition, to kind of go back in my career to where I started this whole thing. And as I talked about earlier this morning, that was with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Chad Hagen. So I just wanted to see where we were. I thought I was still talking about the same things he was talking about, and we were really on the same page. So what makes this extra special about this one is there's a gentleman on this call. I see Dr. Joaquin Sporquet, who would have been teaching me in my formative years in Minnesota, as Matthew talked about. So we truly have the expert. It's the student teaching the teacher a little bit today, or at least I hope I don't embarrass myself too much. So anyway, sow body condition. We'll talk about, again, the how to quantify sow body condition, because again, as we noticed in the U.S. and we definitely have seen in Asia and in Europe, there's the ability to save money and increase production. And most places, those are two things that they like to listen to. Matthew did a much better job than what I got. I guess basically I am a pig farmer. I come from Iowa, still have our family farms back there, but I live in Spain. Spain gives me the opportunity to work obviously closer in Europe, and also Russia and Asia. So I'm a pig farmer. Again, I go all over the world, you know, and as I talked about, you know, some of the things that we really worked on with Joaquin, who's again on the call, and Dr. Hagen, way back in the mid 2000s, was how to condition sows properly and what that brought us performance wise. And in my time at PIC, when I came over as a technical director, my boss, Nick McCulley, said, you're going to see a different animal in Europe than we're used to here in North and South America. And I didn't know what he meant by that till I got on the farms and I saw a lot of really heavy sows. So, you know, we've put a lot of emphasis on this, body condition scoring, feeding them correctly. And my clients, again, I feel really good about where we are today. And I would think we are very, we would push the Americans as far as body condition goes. So we've looked to adopt principles that are commercially applicable and we can repeat over and over again. And so that's some of the things we'll talk about today. And like Matthew said, if you got any questions, I'll get to them at the end. If it's something that you want answered at the time, you can click in and tell me, because I can't see the questions until the end here. So the categories we'll look at today, how do you see things? So we'll talk about how and in our systems, we quantify body condition, and we'll look at some of the other methods also. Specifically, we'll look at the 3-step method. And no, we're not dancing, we'll be conditioning sows. So that 3-step method, I'll try to walk through that and get some understanding of that. Normally, this would be a good place to have a video because I have been quarantined now for, I think it's 96 days. I'm not counting, but it's been 96 days. I wasn't able to get that. So we're going to have some pictures to kind of walk through different scenarios. Heavy sows. So last month we had gilt management, and we talked about what happens with heavy gilts. So here we go again. We'll talk about heavy sows and what happens there. Keanu Reeves starring in The Matrix. Okay, so that makes no sense now. Hopefully it'll make sense later. No bumps on this road. This is something we'll go head on at. We'll talk about what we see when we increase feed at the end of gestation, and maybe what we don't see, more importantly. And then again, this kind of goes into what we talked about last month on gilts. We'll talk about full feed again. So as we've started looking at this, as Matthew has said, let's start to look at some topics to talk about, and we'll look at the upcoming topics at the end, towards the end. You know, one of the first things was gilt management. And gilt management, as we look at the non-negotiable, so we use that kind of American term of these are the things that we have to be really good at every day. Other things, honestly, we can be average at, as long as these core things, these big 8, we call them, we're good at. And as I see globally, the systems that are operating top 10% of AgriStats, they have a lot of these big 8 they're executing very well at. So that first one was gilt management. Today we're going to talk about body condition. So I think as we go back to the topic of gilts, it was the boxes that we need to check off: full feed, growth, selection, breeding on the second heat, those type of things. As we check those boxes off, we gain predictability. So we know with a high degree of confidence what that gilt is going to do because we've done these certain things management-wise. I think it's a good segue into the body condition, because we want to take that gilt that we've managed very well. We've got that repeatability going for the first litter, and now with body condition management around that, we can continue that high level of production and also our high level of repeatability. As we will look at this, one of the ways, and this is my only pie chart, this will not be death by pie chart, so don't worry about that. And don't look too much at the cost there. Just look at the numbers and the big areas. The one here is feed. Wean pig costs, and I've tried to guess globally, and I think I'm okay. It's right at 42%. So this would be fundamentally different than slaughter pig cost, where slaughter pig cost, depending upon where you're at on the globe, you're probably looking at somewhere feed being 62 to 72%. So feed, little less as far as a wean pig component, but when you combine that wean pig component with production, that feed, that ability to feed sows correctly, I think 42% underestimates that when we also look at the production end of things. So this is what I talked to Chad Hagan, Dr. Hagan with last night about was make sure I was on the right tune here, because it's been a while since I've done some of these, and we agreed 100%. So the three ways we'll look at today, the pros and cons of quantifying body condition score. The first one is visual. The second one we'll look at is back fat probe, and then we'll walk through the one that I use in my systems, the 3-point method. So the visual, we'll talk about this a little bit, the pros and cons. The visual one obviously is very quick. You can do it from the front of the crate. You can look at an entire pen and make a visual assumption of body condition score. The kind of the con side of visual interpretation is it's the least accurate, and we'll look at some data on that to quantify that. And I think really where that inaccuracy has come is even over the last 5 years, the genetics are much different today. If I'm body conditioning 100 sows, there'll be 20 in there that if I look at them close and then I put my hands on them, it's a totally different sow than what I'm looking at. So I think that's very it's in today's genetics, much different than, again, even a short time ago. The other thing is the visual part of body condition scoring is not very tangible, and it's very difficult to explain and train. So saying this is what I see, this is why I see it, is a little bit difficult. I like this slide, Dr. Mark Nauer. This is from North Carolina State, out of the States. He has this way of body condition scoring with a caliper. So you see the caliper score. The caliper, we use that in the 3-point method, and basically have built the caliper to mirror what we're doing with the 3-point method. So I think as we look at this, the caliper farm being farm A and the visual farm being farm B, what it actually is when you put the caliper on farm B is those visual farms have a very good tendency, or likely tendency, to be heavy. And as I've come into Europe, as I've come especially into China, some of those things that we've seen is we think our body condition is okay, but when we go out there and actually quantify it, whether it be caliper, in some cases back fat probe, or the 3-point score, we're a lot heavier than what we thought visually. Back fat probe, when done correctly, this is very accurate. There's no doubt. It's inexpensive equipment. You can see the picture there. I actually have 2 of these in my box in my garage that I think are about 20 years old, and it's the same Renko. I think for about 120 euros, you can do back fat. The opposite side of the pro of back fat is it's a high, and I don't know if training's the right word. Maybe I should have used it's a high degree of accuracy is needed. I was brought up through the nucleus level and daughter nucleus level, where we did a lot of back fat measurement, and I knew laying my hand on the spine of the gilt or the bore right to the very left of my knuckle was exactly where I needed to put the back fat probe. but my hand's not the same as anybody else's. So literally a millimeter or an eighth of an inch off will give you a total different sow or gilt. So accuracy is a big part of back fat probing. We saw this in China. Hair coat is an issue. We started back fat probing, and once we started going back and doing it properly by shaving, we got a totally different look, or a totally different condition score. And then the time. This takes the most time to do. And then the commercially applicable. And I think that's those two words are very important in the real world. Is this something that we can put in the commercial world where we might have upwards of 20-25% turnover employees? Can we do this correctly every day? If you can do it, this is a good tool to use. But in most of my cases and most of my clients, we don't have the ability to do that. And then we got this thing that Joaquin and Chad Hagen taught me a long time ago, this 3-point method. And we'll go through this, but it's quick. It's just as quick as the visual scoring. Sorry about that. And it's tangible. I think, and what I mean by that is we do less discussion because everything is 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we have less discussion and more results. So there seems to not be as much discussion about the differences we see. It's very simple. Again, it's commercially applicable. We've put this in a lot of sows from the US, now sweeping across Europe and Asia, and it continues to go, and it's proven. There's a couple things to look at there. Pens, we said, how are we going to do this in a pen scenario, loose housing? And we've just made it simple. We follow the same matrix, a little bit different, but we've taken that con, and I don't think it's really an issue now. The one thing that I have a little bit of trouble, or a lot of trouble, is if you're in the US, and I even see this in China because they have the same it's the internet, the National Pork Board 5 scoring system. So the 3-point method, it can be done. I guess I'm just not smart enough to do it, but adapting the 3-point method to the 5-point just kind of hurts my head. Then there's, as we talked about, and I think, in today's age, is a lot of us are coming out of this lockdown. If we weren't talking about COVID-19 and what it's done to our personal lives and businesses and communities, if we weren't talking about African swine fever and what that's done, I'm confident labor would be one of the things that we would be discussing, if not a priority. So as we look at processes, as we look at things to improve our results, we have to also have that labor component in there. So as you can see, the sow caliper would be identical to the 3-point method. It's just as quick as the visual, and a lot more efficient than the back fat. And so why this 1, 2, 3 system? Again, 1 being thin, 2 being ideal, and 3 being heavy, because we've proven that. Again, I remember distinctly back in Minnesota a few years ago, mid 2000s, Chad wanted to take a system and make it simple. Again, we had a lot of discussion over, well, is it a 4, is it a 4.5? And when we went to that 3, a lot less discussion, more results. And again, I think as I've seen this, especially with pelleted feed, gestation feed, the density that we have in today's feed, that 5-point scoring system, literally the difference between a 4 and a 4.5 in some systems was a very incremental change on the feed box. So could you physically make an adjustment that small in the feed box, or did it get done? The 1, 2, 3 score gives us the ability to manage that closer. Again, I need to say I profusely apologize to this sow for painting her up like this and her having to walk around like this her entire gestation, but I think it serves a point. Excuse me, you'll hear me taking several drinks of water here. So this 3-point method, we look at 3 distinct areas, and these areas marked terribly on the sow are areas where there is no muscle cover. You're feeling for fat cover. And that first one, obviously, to the right is ribs. So the way I teach it, the way I learn, the ribs will make up about 80% of the score. So it's always been in my head. The ribs define the score. The other two areas kind of refine the score. So as I feel the ribs, I go to the H-bone, and the H-bone, if you think of like a dairy cow, a Holstein, that would be the top of the pelvis area there. So no muscle cover, fat cover, you feel there, and the pin bone back there the same way. So again, the ribs, I don't want to say are the most important, but that really sets the tone for how I'm thinking. Once I touch the ribs, I've got a very good idea, and I let the fat cover on the H-bone and pin bone refine that. And this is a point where when I'm in a training session or if I'm in a room and we're talking about this before going into a farm where everybody starts touching their hand, I think that's pretty cool. To do that 1 to 3 score, we have this knuckle method. So when we talk about feeling the ribs, and the ribs being 80% of that score, if you look at the bottom area there, if you take your finger and run it across your closed fist and knuckles, that's how you would feel a thin sow. You know, obviously you would feel all of the ribs there. That sow would be considered a 1. If you flatten out your hand and feel across your knuckles, you can feel that first rib touch the second and no more. That's really an ideal sow, or a 2. And if you feel your wrist or the top of your hand and with pressure, you can't feel anything, that is a 3 or a heavy sow. The only thing I can't do here, and I really struggle in a training session, the knowledge transfer for installing the SOP, I would touch people's shoulders and try to gauge the right pressure to have. I can't do that here, but again, I hope you get the idea with the knuckle method. That's a good, very good teaching tool for what we're doing. And again, with these transfer of knowledge, you know, whether it's Poland on the right or Italy on the left, you know, when we have these training sessions where biosecurity is allowed, you know, we can, in theory, bring the production managers in from a large company or small company, doesn't matter, and we can very quickly transfer this knowledge to the entire company and have a high degree of confidence, because this is really repeatable, that we will begin to have a very good way of knowing how our sows are conditioned. I'm going to thank my colleagues at Pork and Company, specifically Caesar here. I stole their SOP for an example here. And this one is easy, as we say all over. Let's SOP this, standard operating procedure. The 3-point method is a very easy step-by-step example to SOP. Also, in this case, as I said before, in our SOPs that we have, we'll have a video icon that you can click on so you can see everything that I'm trying to struggle to walk through. You click on the video and you can see this happening, and it really makes sense, I hope. We talked about the caliper, and Dr. Nauer has been a big proponent of this and has helped me out. That's actually the NC State caliper in the upper right. And if you look, that caliper is 1, 2, 3, thin, ideal, and heavy, you know, so it's based upon what we're doing with that 3-point method. My very good friends at Belje in Croatia there, where we on the left, the top left picture, we don't necessarily use this to condition every sow. What we do is we use this to supplement our training. So this was a training session. We had a thin sow, so we wanted to see, quantify it with the caliper, and it works. So again, the caliper, I think, is a very good tool to use. Maybe not so much to condition score every sow, but it is good to at least supplement some training. The bottom right, as we do in the pig business, we steal other ideas. That's my homemade one on the bottom right. If you would like one, leave me an email. But again, I think this is a great tool, again, to supplement what we're training. And the ideal sow, I'll go back to what I said earlier, you know, as we walk through that guilt management process, again, I'm very predictable that I use the word predictable, because systems where we check all the boxes with guilt management, we make that first litter very predictable. The ideal condition sow, like we're looking at here, is predictable in that she's going to come into farrowing, she's going to eat maximum feed, she's going to be comfortable in hot weather, cold weather, or more comfortable. She's going to pass pigs easily. Her farrowing interval will be shorter. She's going to milk very well. She's going to take care of her pigs, and again, eat very well, drink well. And then when we wean her, she's going to breed back in 4.5 to 4.8 days. And again, start this cycle again. So again, as we talk about gilts and wean sows, the combination of gilt management combining with proper body condition, I think is a great thing, because systems that have this going, when this starts going, it's a great thing. And when we have the majority of sows like this, our conversations aren't about milking ability, diarrhea and farrowing, or heavy sows. It's about we have more pigs than teats. Our nursery is not designed for this many pigs. And to me, those are good conversations to have. This is a picture. This is just an idea. This was a really good group. I think Manon Garcia from Uvesa is on. I appreciate her and her farm here. This was just a really good group. At 35 days, I believe we're getting well into the 80% range. So again, as I condition score a group like this, I know in 114, 115 days later, we're going to have really nice pigs, a lot of them, and good sows to milk. So when we body condition score, I tried to lay this out this way. So we start out, and you can see the old mark was in pink, and I came in a couple days, 35 days later. But that top mark up by her shoulder blades, that would be the condition score at breeding. And you can see it too. So she was ideal condition, great sow to breed. Then we maintain that. So at 35 days, we're still at a body condition score 2. So that's how we want to see that. I've modeled this out to at 60 and 90 days. This would be the perfect case scenario. So we bred her as a 2. Our nutrition program, our feed box setting, our ability to execute the plan have worked perfectly here. This is the ideal situation, maintaining. This is another situation where we might have bred this sow because, again, we'll talk about this in a later discussion. We will always hit breed and farrowing targets. So the chances are we're going to breed a small amount of thin sows, but we want to see this happen. You know, we want to see where we've conditioned them correctly, and that sow who was a 1 or thin at breeding, 35 days body condition score, she's at a condition score 2. So this is recovery. This is good. You don't necessarily want to see a 1, but those small amount we have, it's very simple. We want to push 1s to 2s, and we want to push 3s to 2s. And this, honestly, I'm seeing a lot of. I think we've gotten a lot better, but we still have this happening in the commercial world where we're getting heavy. So you see a sow that we bred in ideal condition, and whether she's getting too much feed or there's too high of energy or what have you, I'm not a nutritionist, but this shows me quantified that this particular sow or system, if you have a bunch of them, these sows are going from ideal to heavy. And this is a loss in money, and this is a loss in production. So that's totally opposite of the topic or what we want to accomplish. And then this would be, I don't want to call it the worst case scenario, but this one's kind of bad. There's no arguing that sow's heavy. So we had a sow heavy at breed, and she's staying heavy. If she's staying heavy through to farrowing, we've got an issue there with our setting for heavy sows, or we're not managing those heavy sows. Because again, the concept here is very simple. Keep 2s, maintain, make 1s 2s, and make 3s 2s. We'll talk about heavy sows the same way we talked about heavy gilts. You know, one of the things with heavy sows is they produce less colostrum. So I have gone into farms, to systems, where we will have 60 to 75% of our sows condition score 3 and heavy. And then the next topic is we have litter birth weight issues. We have got a diarrhea issue coming in about 2 or 3. I just know that heavy sows don't produce enough colostrum, okay? So where we get this right, and I'll show you another slide of some trials we've done. Where we have ideal condition, we don't see the colostrum intake issue as much. Okay, one more on heavy sows. Again, NC State data, 100-pound increase, or I think if my conversion is right in my head, 45 kilogram increase in body weight, you're going to lose about 3/4 of a pig. So again, heavy sows. The only thing predictable about a heavy sow is what she does in farrowing. She comes into farrowing heavy, she doesn't eat, she's uncomfortable, she's up and down, she lays on pigs, she doesn't milk well. We begin that bad scenario. So heavy sows, again, we want to limit those as much as possible. Okay, the last one, I promise you, on heavy sows. And I like this because this goes back to when I started to learn this whole 3-point method and the importance of body condition, because this exact slide is what we see today. And when we get this right, we see the opposite. So when we have increased gestation intake, we depress lactation intake every time. And when we get that right, so as you can see, is move to the right. And again, I've used this from Dr. Tokash a lot. When we get that body condition right, when we get ideal sows, our lactation intake takes off, and now we get in that really good cycle. I want to give credit where credit is due. This is my my friends in Croatia, my client there, Belje Group, did an in-depth study on body condition score, and I believe there's 95 slides to this. One of the things is, I just pulled this out, was body weight by body condition score. This was exactly what we thought it would be. Our ideal condition sows have the heaviest pigs. The thins obviously have the smallest, and the 3s, the heavies, not as big. And I don't have the science behind this. All I have is a lot of field observation, and I'd be interested in Joaquin's thought on this. But the heavy sows I see are the ones that have the litter variation as far as birth weight goes. So those are the sows that, 17 pigs, 18 pigs, but you've got half of them weighing 2.3 kilograms, and then you got some in there weighing less than 700 grams, and then you trying to catch up to my metric system. But then you have the small ones, less than 800, 700 grams. So again, my simple way of looking at this is to maximize the number of ideal sows going into farrowing. And this is I use my friend at PIC and my mentor, along with Joaquin, Jose Piva. We would look at a sow like this, and I hope Piva would say the same thing, because he would say this sow is athletic. You can look at her. She's got a nice, slope to her back. I can tell she has a perfect cover of fat on her ribs. Her H-bone and pin bone, her legs are ideal, her underline. Sometimes, and again, I'm accused of being, maybe from my wife, to be boring. But this, to me, is perfection. This is an ideal sow. And again, I look at a sow like this. If we have the majority of sows looking like this going into farrowing, I can tell you that's a good system. And again, we've talked about this but again, the heavy sows, the issues I see with heavy sows are more so than the thin sows. So it's been an opportunity for us here in Europe and China to get these heavy sows conditioned properly. So we always have on the farm the matrix, and the matrix, every time we'll say, where's your matrix? What is it? The matrix is nothing more than how we feed the sow. So we look at this, it's on a laminated piece of paper, it's pinned to the wall, it's on a feed box, but this is probably one of the most important things we have, because we'll have, if you look at this is just an example of one of our farms, parity 2+. So we look at parity 2+ separately, and you'll see the 1, 2, 3, thin, ideal, and heavy, and then our condition score across the top, and then how much we feed them. And if you follow that parity 2 plus condition score 2 and the heavies across, you will see we do not increase feed the last trimester. We just simply do not see the return on investment of increasing feed on prime parity sows who are in ideal condition or heavy. It's just, again, for my own system, I'm very confident in that, and I've heard my ex-colleague Mauricio Conclaves from PIC talk about the same thing. Increasing feed last trimester on ideal sows or heavy, sow and gilt, just is a loss of money, and we do not see the benefit, and that benefit's no birth weight issue, no birth weight increase. From a gilts, and again, the parity 1 standpoint, these sows, these gilts are still growing. So we do, scientifically and in the field, we do see the benefit on pig birth weight with increasing feed to gilts and parity 1s, but not the heavy ones. So this is our matrix, we call it, or feed scale. I just got this brief note, talk about pen gestation. So as we move, a lot of my clients will move from 30 days stalls into pen gestation. We have the same matrix, the same theory, but we'll look at that as the 1, 2, 3, and the number of sows in the box or in the pen, and how that corresponds to the feed box setting. So we've took that slight hurdle, and it's not so much of a hurdle anymore. So again, as we move the pens, we have the 1, 2, 3s. In the perfect world, you'll have a pen of 1s together, 2s together, and 3s together, and feed them like that. The real world, you could very possibly, and it happens, that you'll have a mix in some of those, and then you just look at the majority and you feed to the majority. So I hope that makes sense. So are you saying no increase in late feed and gestation? That's correct. Outside of Danbred or Danish genetics, my experience again is we just don't see that return on investment. And I can tell you, as early as last week, I have Danbred sows. I work with the Danbred people. I've been challenging them for about 4 years to look at this, and they're actually starting to look at that. Okay, so also with the hyper prolific sows, and there's been many trials to see this and birth weight. And again, you can look at that. Mauricio Conclave's PIC data, K-State, I believe, has it. We just don't see that. But again, I also want to say gilts, and my recommendation is parity 1s. We still do see that birth weight advantage from increasing feed, but just on those sows, or gilts and sows. So if you are increasing feed last trimester, I think it's important to look at, you can look at it just on diet cost alone, and this is from the PIC manual 2015. Are you getting that return on investment? So if you are increasing feed, are you seeing a 1.6% decrease in pre-wean mortality? So are you getting your bang for your buck, as we'd say in this state? So if you are increasing feed, the challenge is it working for you? Again, my pictures here. I don't have anybody increasing feed, and again, we just don't see the issue, and haven't for quite some time. As far as genetics goes, I think it's important as a producer that we really challenge our genetic supplier on real data and model that production offset that's needed to cover the feed cost. Okay, so if and all this is published data, you can go on any genetic supplier's website and see their recommendation. How much are they saying to feed the sow versus what your target is and what you need to cover that offset. I can tell you the latest modeling on the top genetic companies in the world, what one says to feed their sow for lactation and gestation, and what another says to feed their sow, that difference is a 7 PSY difference. So if they're saying it, I want to know that I can offset that somehow. And again, that's not a small difference, 7 PSY. That's around 200 kilograms and over 400 pounds of feed on a fixed performance equation. So we need to be asking our genetic suppliers that question. And I say that coming from a genetic company. There's several KPIs. There's a lot. If I wanted to keep everything in threes here. The things we like to look at in our systems are, and these are really easy to get. Annual gestation feed usage. This is real simple for me because the 680 to 700 kilograms corresponds exactly to the growth rate of the gilts we want. So for a simple person like me, excuse me, my voice is giving out. Excuse me. So for me being simple, that 680 to 700 kilograms, that range, a little over 1,500 pounds, that's that gestation use that usually corresponds, highly predictable, to a high level of ideal sows. Kilograms per piglet per year, kilograms or pounds. This is a good number because I can take this number whether I'm in Inner Mongolia, Vietnam, North Carolina, or Mexico. This number still corresponds because it's leveraging the amount of lactation and gestation feed that we're feeding. So our highest cost leveraged against our throughput. So this number is, I like looking at this number. And again, our benchmark for this is we're shooting for 38 kilograms or less, or right around 84 pounds. So I got three. The other one, and I look at this, and if Mammon's on here, I appreciate her letting me use this information from Kota. This is our condition tracker. So this is, I think, I love this information. I think this is some of the most powerful information that we can keep on a farm. This is showing us basically real time how sows are moving from breed to 35 to 60 to 90 days, how those exact sows are moving condition score wise. And to kind of explain that a little bit better, if we look at group 16, for example, at breeding, 67% of those animals were in ideal condition. As we move to 35, our nutrition program, our management is working for us because we moved to 3/4 of them being in ideal, and then 60 and 90 days, we're right around that 90% range. So this tells us things are working right, and we're looking at this correctly. The other thing is, this is just this isn't the entire group. I just picked 20, 25, 30 sows. I mark them on their back and on the card, and then I follow them through because, again, the nutritionists, the nutrition groups, it's not good enough for me to say, I think our condition is okay, or I think we're heavy. This is quantifying that, and I think they appreciate that. And this just so happens, I swear, I just pulled this data. This is a long spreadsheet. So you have the top and then the kind of the cumulative, and where we're sitting at on this cumulative data is exactly where we want to be. 80% going into farrowing. So we're in a good spot here. So in this farm, we know things are working very well here. And again, I put statistics up here. I did terrible in statistics in college, so I laugh when I talk statistics. But again, this bell-shaped curve is very simple. We want our condition score twos at least 80% going in as ideal condition. And when we have that happen, Mammon, I told you I would use this picture. When we have that happen, we have happy things going on. We have a lot of pigs. We've begun that cycle, so things go good. We have fundamentally different conversations when we have ideal sows going and gilts going into farrowing. This is some data on my own that I've kept, and I was keeping this, so it's just a few data points, but these are 320 sows and gilts per group that I wanted to look at. I haven't been able to do that. I will catch back up as we get to traveling again. But what this tells me is exactly what we kind of knew. As you look at the bottom, the x-axis there, that's the percent of sows that are in ideal condition. So as you see, as we move that condition score up, as the more sows are in ideal condition, our total born goes up. Likewise, and again, this was something that we kind of already knew, but I wanted to kind of quantify a little bit better. As we add more ideal condition sows, they farrow a lot better. Those heavy sows, they don't farrow very well. I think everybody on the call today, unless you're in Australia, we're coming into warmer weather. We know what those heavy sows do. This just tells me the more, again, ideal condition sows makes a lot of things better. And in a lot of cases, as we look at this, I didn't go out specifically to make stillborns better. I didn't go out specifically to make total born better. But what I do know is as we get, again, more condition score twos, a lot of KPIs start to click in the right direction. And this is supported, again, it's like saying water is wet. Yes, we got better sows, we have less stillborns, but the science behind that, and this kind of goes into that earlier Dr. Tokash information. The more we feed, the higher the stillborn rate. The more we feed in gestation, I should say, the higher the stillborn rate. Another thing is, I think it's important to weigh feed. I have a client that weighs feed weekly because they do not have a high confidence in the density of their feed on a week-to-week basis. So that is extreme. The normal SOP for weighing feed is quarterly, or when you think you need to do it, but generally quarterly. And this is a case where it's set up very easy. You have the feed box, so that's the liters, I believe. The sticker, yeah, it's liters. And then what the actual weight is on there. So again, it's very important to routinely, and I think routinely quarterly is okay, like I would say, weigh feed to make sure your density is matching. As with the gilts last month, you know, the importance of, so when we look at this timeline, we have 22, 28 days in farrowing. We got the 114, 116 days of gestation. That's the majority. But that small time frame from where we wean the sow to where we breed her, so, you know, we're looking at, you know, from 0 to 5 days. The feeding during that time is critical to reproductive performance. So just like, again, we talked about full feeding gilts, this is the time frame, very specifically 5 days to get that done. This is data from the US, what we've seen, you know, wean sows, we take them out of farrowing. Some of those wean sows are eating upwards of, you know, 14, 15 pounds, 6, 7 kilograms. We do not want to limit that. We want to continue to push that along because this equates to total born, and we know they'll eat. Full feed means full feed. So of course, Are you full feeding? Yes. But when we go out there and look, what's the reality of the situation? So the left, that's what I would consider full feed to open sows or gilts. To the right, the same farm, we don't have that. And again, if we're not managing this small 0 to 5 day area very well, you're not going to get the maximum amount of total born. You're not going to get the maximum amount out of your genetics. There's a lot of work, much smarter people than me, coming from this would be K-State data on the science behind why we need full feed, the lysine, the energy, so I would encourage you, if you want to look at that. K-State has this, your genetic supplier will have this, the science behind it. I just know full feed, and full feed means full feed, wean to breed. When we maximize that, we always see results. Building farms today. We are building farms today. We are paying for installation of ad-lib feeders. Ad-lib feeders are extremely expensive. We will only put them on wean sows, but again, we always see the return on investment of these. We will see a minimum on trials we've done both in the US and on the right in Spain, 7/10 of a pig total born difference. We can pay for a lot of feeders really quick. And when we think about it, that small time frame from where we wean a sow to where we breed her, that's one of the more, we have a lot of conversations around how to manage that. That takes a high level of skill, because we're taking a sow who again has been eating 7-8 kilograms, 16 pounds, and we have to maintain that. But then she starts coming in heat and doesn't eat as much, so these feeders take that greatly out of the equation. And lastly, we've talked about several things here today, how to body condition. None are perfect. I just talked to you about what we have in the commercial world, where we're seeing results. But I think as none of those are perfect, it is imperative that you have some way of managing that, and you have some way of quantifying that. So whatever you choose, do it. But this is one of those things where, and we learned a long time ago, let's execute this as close to perfectly as possible. And I know that sounds, how do we execute perfectly? We do. We put a lot of emphasis on that. Every one of our visits, it's an agenda item to look at that. So we will put a lot of emphasis on that. So again, execute that perfectly. And it is not a perfect world. So having that information, that condition tracker, working with your nutrition group, because when you do see some changes, and you will, whether, too thin, too heavy, whatever, you want to react quickly to those. So that's kind of the last thing on that. Matthew.
Yes, PJ, thank you very much. So first thing, I want to remind everyone, if you have any questions, please use the chat function. So far, there is no question which have been written, so I give you some time to write down your questions. In the meantime, I would like to inform all of you that Tonisity is planning some webinars in the weeks or months to come. And so we will have, most of our webinars will be actually involving PJ. Thanks, PJ, for helping us with this. Most of the dates have to be confirmed, but you have here the different subjects that we will discuss. And if you want to join one of those webinars, please send me an email. My email address is written at the bottom. So PJ, I have a question for you. I know it's only logic, but maybe you could remind everyone about this. Can you please tell us a bit more about the impact of body condition on the sow mortality and replacement?
Yeah, so this would be a really good research trial, I believe, is to tie, because I have not done that, to quantify body condition specifically with, what you're saying. And not only that, mortality, but, there's the other aspect around well-being that we haven't talked about. So there's that aspect. What I can tell you is, again, as we have pushed and pushed, and the Bellier people, I don't know if they're on here or not, but using them as an example, as we have pushed that entire system to get sows in ideal condition, we have seen, again, the other things improve, and one of those that has improved, and there might be other reasons, has been the sow mortality. So to answer your question, no, I haven't done that, but that would be one heck of a research project. But I can tell you, we get good, we see the results across the board literally get good.
Okay, thank you. I have a question, actually. It's more a question for clarification. The question is, what was the meaning of 38 kilo per piglet per year? Is it the total amount per piglet for this period? I believe it's the total feed per sow per year, which you divide by the number of piglets. Is it correct?
Yeah, and this is a good question. I did a poor job of explaining that. So, the 38 kilograms per piglet would be, for a sow farm, both lactation and gestation usage over a period of time. So let's say 6 months. So the lactation and gestation usage over those 6 months divided by the number of pigs weaned during that same time frame. So I can tell you, this is I haven't stepped into a system yet that maybe they weren't looking at it, but literally within 5 minutes, that information was available to us. So that 38 kilograms would be, that's the amount of total feed divided by the number of pigs produced. And
okay, thank you. Yep, go ahead.
I should say you got Matthew's email, you have my email. I also have WeChat on there. The last guild management, a lot of questions came in after, a lot of great questions. If you're like me, ride home or have a chance to think about it, feel free. If you guys have, if you have any questions, feel free, send me an email. I really enjoy talking about this stuff and seeing the results that come out of it. So feel free, give me an email.
Okay. PJ, I have a question here that you cannot see because it was sent to me only. So I'm going to read it. So it's Daniel from Philippines, and he's saying, during farrowing, we feed lactating feed ad lib up until the weaning, or control feeding at the day of weaning and again feed ad lib after weaning or prior to breeding. Maybe I will send it to you so you can read it. Can you read it now? PJ, can you read the question or you want me to read again?
I'm sorry. So I do the old, I should have unmuted myself. So during farrowing, we feed lactation feed, ad lib up until weaning, or control feeding at the day of weaning, and again, feed ad lib after weaning or prior to breeding. I think that's saying, many systems now are adopting the ad lib feeding in farrowing from the time they load the sow. Okay, that makes it easy to manage. There's no discussion. When you load the sow, you start feeding them. I will have some work to do with my Danish friends on that, but the majority of places that I've been, US, Europe, that's what we do. So, and then following this question, keep feeding ad lib after weaning or prior to breeding? Yes, that is correct. So you want, through lactation, those 5 days before breeding, maximum feed intake. I think, showing my age a little bit here, what we would call that at weaning is flushing, maximum feed flushing.
Okay, there was a
And I
second
see,
part. Yeah.
I see the second question, and this is a good question. This is an excellent question. It is, what ration do we feed during the 4 to 5 days post-weaning, lactation or gestation? And this is one I get posed to quite a lot. And I think the important thing here is, like the previous question, I would rephrase that. What would I rather have? 4 kilograms per day intake of lactation feed, or 6 kilograms per day intake of gestation feed during this time, whatever we can get more of. So in that case, gestation. So the main thing is, whether it's lactation or gestation, we are feeding full feed. There has been some work done on feeding lactation, and honestly, it's been kind of up and down. And up and down meaning one trial will say yes, one trial will say no. I myself, I believe Mammon's on the call here. I believe the Bellier group, we do feed glucose. So we will have at my friends in Croatia, that's mixed in the feed. In Spain, we top dress. I think there is something to go there, but that's me. I don't have anything tangible yet on that, but it makes sense to me to have a high energy feed during that time frame. But the main thing, feed heavy.
Okay, thank you, PJ. PJ, one question. As you know, Tonicity is focusing on improving water intake. And what can you tell us about water intake, especially in the lactation period? Do you have any comments there, and how can it help driving feed intake?
Yeah, so like we talked about last month with the growing gilt, we tried this the other way. We tried to have feed push water intake, and it didn't work too well. What we found is, when we can maximize water intake, and specifically on wean to finish, those first 12 hours, really first 6 hours of placement, our goal is to get 100% of the pigs on water, because then they'll get on feed, not the other way around. The same thing for sows, but taking a step back in the context of what we were talking about today, you put an ideal condition sow into farrowing, she's gonna drink the proper amount of water, and she's gonna push her own lactation feed. So I think those things go hand in hand. You need water. More is better without wastage. You need water to push, whether it's wean pig in nursery, or wean to finish, or a sow in farrowing. So it's vitally important.
Okay, thanks very much. I don't see any other question at the moment. Okay, one more. Okay, it's a question about Tonicity products, so maybe I will reply later to that person. Okay, so thanks PJ for being with us today. Thanks for sharing your very practical knowledge, and we look forward to the next webinars. Thanks again.